Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Cheat Meal presented by Deep Fried Draft. My name is Brian Bosarge. As we always do, we're going to review all the games I watched from the previous week and preview the games coming up this next weekend. We're going to start out on last Thursday with Western Kentucky and Louisiana Tech. Was really caught my eye was junior wide receiver from Louisiana Tech, Carlos Henderson. He has deep threat speed. A little undersized, only 5'11", 191, but he showed the speed and hands that can make an impact at the next level. Only a junior. I wouldn't expect him to come out, but I have been surprised before. 8 receptions in this game for 232 yards and 3 touchdowns. Senior quarterback from Louisiana Tech, Ryan Higgins. He stayed behind a couple of transfers. He's a fifth-year senior, finally getting his chance to start. And Western Kentucky senior quarterback Mike White, who transferred from South Florida, they combined to throw 10 touchdowns in this game. From Friday night, Boise State and New Mexico, after the Tulane UCF game was canceled due to Hurricane Matthew, I added this one to watch. There's nothing really of note that stood out to me. There's a few Boise players that I will go back and look into further as the season progresses, but it's just a game I wanted to get on tape. Saturday was East Carolina and South Florida. Zay Jones of East Carolina continues to rack up huge reception numbers this year. He's now got 84 catches in his team's first 6 games. That's unbelievable. South Florida senior wide receiver Rodney Adams showed tremendous speed in this game. This is my first real breakdown of him. I said he could be a sleeper in this draft. I now do not think he's going to be a sleeper by the end of the season. I think by the time the Combine and the All-Star games and the season's over with, he could end up being a legit mid-round draft pick. Texas and Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry, Red River Showdown. Used to be called the Red River Shootout. I don't really know what they're calling it anymore. Standout in this game to me was Texas junior running back Deontay Foreman. This guy's like a bulldozer with an extra gear. Huge back, 6'1", 249. He was just abusing Oklahoma defenders throughout this game. Finished with 159 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Texas head coach Charlie Strong, he took over the defensive play calling in this game, and the Longhorn defense gave up almost 700 yards of offense. So, seems like the Buzzards are starting to circle down in Austin for Charlie Strong. Youngstown State and Illinois State was another late add this week. I wanted to see Youngstown State senior defensive end Derek Rivers. He was a guy that was on the Senior Bowl watch list to start the season. He was very impressive in this game. He's got decent size, 6'3", 255. I mean, the lack of height maybe ends up hurting him. He could end up transitioning to a 34 outside backer or 4'3 strong side backer. He's very quick off the snap. Good, uses his hands really well. He finishes. I mean, that's something that you don't see a lot of guys. They can get to the quarterback, but they don't finish. This guy finishes. He ended up with 4 tackles in the game, 3 sacks, and several more hurries. I mean, he's going to be a riser as the process moves on, I believe. Indiana and Ohio State, I thought J.T. Barrett continued to improve as a passer, and he may end up working himself into a draftable grade by the time he ends up coming out. He's listed as a junior, but I don't see him coming out this year. But like I said, by the time he's done, he could end up with a draftable grade. Another game I added late was Idaho and Louisiana Monroe. I wanted to check out the Idaho had 2 tight ends. I wanted to check out Buck Cowan and Deion Watson, and there wasn't a whole lot to see. Unless one or the other wows in an all-star game, they're probably not going to be drafted. Like I said, I'm just basing this off of one game, but I don't know how many more I'm going to see of Idaho. Alabama and Arkansas. After this game was over with, I kind of felt bad for Arkansas junior quarterback Austin Allen. That kid definitely spent some extra time in the cold tub this week. He took a beating at the hands of the Alabama defense. He does, however, he's got a live arm. He's very accurate. He could be one to watch next year. He needs to add weight. He's a little undersized. Their senior tight end, Jeremy Sprinkle, showed off his ability once again. In particular, I was very impressed on one play. It was third down, down in the Alabama end of the field, and he reached down to make a catch that, excuse me, you don't see smaller wide receivers go down to get. And this guy's a big tight end. Very impressive in this game was Alabama's sophomore corner, Minkah Fitzpatrick, not draft eligible until 2018. But in this game, he had 3 interceptions, including a 100-yard return for touchdown. He and redshirt sophomore Marlon Humphrey, arguably the best set of corners I believe that Nick Saban's ever had at Alabama. Washington and Oregon. Washington ends their 12-game losing streak to Oregon in about as sound a fashion as you'll ever see, as they drop 70 on the Ducks. Their sophomore quarterback, Jake Browning, who has the potential to be the top quarterback in the draft next year. He'll definitely compete with Josh Rosen and a couple of others for that. And their sophomore running back, Myles Gaskin, another 2018 prospect. They led the way in this one. At this point in time, I would urge the board of trustees and boosters and the like at UW. They probably need to be honing out an extension right now for Chris Peterson before the scavengers start coming in, because he has turned this program back into a national power. And if they want to keep it that way, they better come off the money. That's all I can say. Wazoo, Washington State, and Stanford. I don't know what the hell happened to Stanford. This is 2 straight weeks now. They just got slapped mollywopped by teams from the Evergreen State. Wazoo junior quarterback Luke Falk looked solid for the most part. Had a couple of head-scratching interceptions that I'd like to see him not do in the future. I really like Luke Falk. Again, right now I want to say he's listed as QB3 for me in this draft. I'm not 100% sure he comes out early. He could. It's a very weak quarterback crop this year. He could see his grade elevated because of it, or his draft status, I should say, elevated. Excuse me, because of that. Apologize. I'm still trying to get over an illness that I had in last week's video. Now I've just got a bad cough, so bear with me as we move on here. UNLV, San Diego State. Another week for the Aztecs. Another 200 yards of 200 scrimmage yards for Donnell Pumphrey. This kid's going to not only play in the NFL, but he's going to play well. I mean, he's just a playmaker. Georgia and South Carolina. Game was supposed to be Saturday, moved to Sunday because of Hurricane Matthew. In this game, Nick Chubb just looked incredible for the Dogs. Showed excellent bursts, yards after contact. He looks like he's getting back to form before the knee injury, which is a good thing for him and a good thing for Georgia. For South Carolina, it's another week they just couldn't score. They now rank, out of 128 FBS teams, they rank dead last in points per game. They also rank dead last in passing yards per game and dead last in yards per carry. It's just not good for their offense. All right, so we got 10 games, excuse me. 10 games on the schedule. It was 11, but one was postponed because of flooding issues or issues related to Hurricane Matthew. So we had to drop a game between North Carolina A&T and Bethune-Cookman. So as of right now, I have no games involving FCS teams this week. I'm going to look to see if I can add one, maybe, that I don't have on the schedule right now to see. So week starts early. It's going to start tonight, Wednesday, 7 p.m. on ESPNU. Appalachian State at Louisiana Lafayette. It's going to be our first look this year at the Cajuns, and their player to watch is going to be senior running back number 15, Elijah McGuire. He's a very, very, very good running back who does not get a lot of run because of all the other really good running backs that are going to be ahead of him in the ranking. But don't sleep on Elijah McGuire as a mid to late round draft pick that has a big impact next year in the NFL. Friday night, 7 p.m. on ESPNU, Memphis at Tulane. If you recall, last week we were going to get our first look at Tulane, but their game against UCF was canceled, or excuse me, should I say postponed till later in the season. So we're going to give it another shot to see the defensive tackle that everyone's raving about, Tanzel Smart. For Memphis, a guy that stood out to me last year, especially when they played Ole Miss, was their now senior cornerback, number 10, Dontrell Nelson. I think he has really good cover skills, and he has good size at 6'1", 210. Saturday morning on ESPN News at 11 a.m., Illinois at Rutgers, and because I like to torture myself, I'm going to watch this game. Rutgers is coming off one of the absolute most lopsided losses I've ever seen, and their 78-0 loss to Michigan. It wasn't the score 78-0. It's the fact that they only had 36 yards of offense. They didn't get a first down until late in the fourth quarter. It's just bad, really bad. And Illinois has not looked very well either, losing to Purdue last week. But for them, the guy to look for is senior defensive end number 91, DeJuan Smoot, who has first round type potential coming off the edge. 11 a.m. Fox Sports 1, West Virginia at Texas Tech. Question here is, will Patrick Mahomes play? The last time we saw them a couple of weeks ago, Mahomes left the game early. So we'll see if he plays this week. The reports are that he probably will. West Virginia is also trying to stay unbeaten in the Big 12. Great matchup to watch here in the trenches will be West Virginia center Tom Orlowski and Texas Tech senior defense nose tackle number 9 Andre Pipkins. So that's a nice trench warfare to watch there. 2:30 p.m. on CBS. Alabama's at Tennessee. Should be a very physical matchup in this game. Tennessee's coming off its first loss, a game in which they lost to Texas A&M in overtime after racking up 700 yards of offense, but they turned the ball over 7 times. Alabama actually jumped out to a big early lead for once against Arkansas. For Tennessee, junior running back Alvin Kamara, he may have actually surpassed, in my eyes, Jalen Hurd as the better pro prospect. He's 5'10", 210 pounds. Last week against A&M, he had 288 scrimmage yards on 26 touches and 3 touchdowns. He's probably going to be extra motivated going to this game as he used to play for Alabama. Transferred a couple years back to a junior college and then signed with Tennessee. So look for that. Also, Tennessee linebacker and one of their top prospects, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, who's been injured off and on all year, is going to miss the rest of the season. 2:30 p.m. on either ABC or ESPN2, depending on which part of the country you live in. It's going to be reverse mirrored. We're going to see North Carolina at Miami. North Carolina's coming off a horrible loss to Virginia Tech in a game that was played in Chapel Hill in the middle of a rain deluge caused by Hurricane Matthew. Miami's coming off a horrible loss to Florida State thanks to a blocked extra point late in the game. This game is going to feature 2 talented junior quarterbacks, one who I don't think will come out early in North Carolina's Mitch Trubisky, and one I do think will come out early in Miami's Brad Kaya. Kaya right now is rated number 2 on our board for quarterbacks. So, like I said, I'll expect him to come out early. He's fitting very well into pro-style offense of Mark Richt, and that will serve him well in transitioning to the next level. 2:45 on ESPNU, Virginia Tech at Syracuse. It's our first look this year at Syracuse and their highly productive wide receiver Amba Etatawo. He wears number 7, 6'2", 210. He transferred this year from Maryland and has really taken to Dino Babers' high up-tempo passing offense. That is until last week, and he was shut down by Wake Forest of all teams. I think Virginia Tech does match up well with them, especially with their senior cornerback Brandon Faison. 6 p.m. on ESPN2, Tulsa at Houston. Tulsa has a pair of solid wide receiver prospects with senior number 2, Kavon Lucas, 5'10", 195, and senior number 88, Josh Atkinson, 6'2", 208. Although I think Lucas is a little banged up and may not play, but those two guys combined, like I said, are fringe, draftable, late-round guys, possible free agents. Houston's looking to rebound after having their college football playoff hopes dashed at the hands of Navy last week. 6:30 p.m. on the SEC Network, Southern Miss at LSU. My main focus in this game is to see Southern Miss defensive tackle Dylan Bradley, who you heard me raving about earlier this season. He'll have a chance to go one-on-one with my top center prospect in LSU's Ethan Pochik. He'll also probably tangle with LSU's guards like Josh Boutte. I also want to see how Southern Miss quarterback Nick Mullins handles the LSU secondary, all of which will probably one day play in the NFL. That's not hyperbole at all. Every one of the guys that will play Saturday night in LSU secondary are probably going to play in the NFL in some capacity. 9:30 p.m. on ESPN, UCLA at Washington State. This is basically a case of just trying to get caught up on Washington State since I haven't had a chance to watch many of their games this year, and another chance to see Luke Falk. That's not to shortchange UCLA because they have quite a number of NFL prospects in their own right as well. Finally, this week's Deep Fried Draft Rookie of the Week is once again Dallas Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott, who single-handedly almost destroyed the Bengals this past week. Wasn't single-handedly, I should say, but he played a big part in it. So again, thank you for watching this week's edition of the Cheat Meal. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Deep Fried Draft. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/deepfrieddraft. You can search us on YouTube, search Deep Fried Draft, subscribe to the channel so you can always see these updates. Take it easy. We'll see you this time next week. Adios.